While visiting my in-laws who live far away, my mother-in-law came to pick us up at the station in her car. My husband Phil got into the passenger seat first, and as I tried to open the backseat door, I realized it was locked. Mother, the door seems to be locked. As I said that to them through the car window, my mother-in-law and Phil looked at each other and started laughing. With a smile, my mother-in-law said, "Why should I let an incompetent woman who can't even do proper wife duties into the car?" What? What do you mean? I never liked you from the start. You wear your career woman attitude on your face and don't support Phil at all. Hey, open the door, I demanded, but the door remained firmly locked. Then Phil in the passenger seat said mockingly, "This should make you rethink things a little. Walk 3 hours back home." At that moment, I couldn't take it anymore. What kind of parent-child pair is this? I won't follow you anymore. I don't care what happens. Fine, I replied, squeezing out my words. My mother-in-law and Phil laughed loudly, rolled up the windows, and drove off. An hour later, Phil called me repeatedly. "I'm Katie Simpson, 31 years old and a working wife. I'm good at Spanish and work for a foreign company. My workplace is vibrant, and I spent my 20s devoted to my job. But soon I realized my 30s were approaching and felt a bit anxious about not having a boyfriend. Even so, I was hesitant to apply to a marriage agency. Instead, my daily routine was to visit my favorite bar after work to relax and think things over. One day, the bar owner approached me. "What's wrong, Katie? You don't seem well." Maybe it's time I start thinking about marriage, but I can't find a partner." "I see. I know it's strange to suggest this to a customer, but how about me?" he proposed. "What?" This bar owner was Phil, who later became my husband. He was 5 years older than me and in his second year of running the bar. At first, we were just owner and customer. But after a few dates, I was drawn to Phil's charm. Since he listened to my work stories, I felt he understood my career and was reassured. Even during busy times, Phil always cared for me. A year into our relationship, he proposed to me, and I happily accepted. After that, my parents approved of the marriage, and we visited Phil's family. His family lives in the suburbs, a 3-hour walk from the nearest station. We headed to his parents' apartment in a rented car. Phil's father had already passed away, and his mother lived alone in the apartment. Suppressing my nerves, I greeted his mother, Diane, respectfully. "Nice to meet you. I'm Katie Simpson. I'm dating Phil," I said. But she stared at me and told Phil, "Phil, are you really marrying her? I thought you'd bring home someone cuter. She looks like she's got a cheeky face," she pointed out. I was shocked by her words. "And if you become his wife, can you help Phil with his work? He's always busy." "You're quitting your job, right?" she questioned. I hurriedly explained that I intended to continue working at my foreign company and had no plans to quit. "You think you can be a wife like that? I don't care if you work for a foreign company, but you're just cheeky." "Phil, don't marry this woman," she criticized. I looked at Phil for help, but he said, Hey, Mom. Katie's salary is high. It's fine if she keeps working, right? Good income, huh? Well, if that's the case, I guess it can't be helped." Phil's words seemed to soften his mother, but I was still hurting. "Even if you get married, don't slack off at work," she warned, and I felt troubled by her advice. Though she approved of our marriage, her words made me anxious. But with our home and her place being 4 hours apart, believing we'd have little contact with his strict mother, I decided to marry Phil. Afterward, we rented a 3-room apartment near Phil's bar and began our newlywed life. However, Phil didn't help with any housework. He would come home after I had fallen into a deep sleep and sleep until noon. Even if I asked him to do some housework before leaving for work, he didn't help at all. "Phil, you didn't do any chores again today. You used to live alone, so you should be able to handle basic housework." "Shut up. Now that we're married, housework is the wife's job, right?" Mom said the same thing. "Don't neglect your wife duties." "But you know how busy my job is, right? You think working for a foreign company makes you look cool? You can't control me just because you have a better job and education." Phil's words seemed to reveal his frustration about my higher educational background and career status. Where did the man who understood my career before marriage disappear to? With my head in my hands, I had no choice but to shoulder all the housework. A few months after our marriage, I came home to a shocking sight. My mother-in-law had shown up and announced, "Mother, is something wrong?" "What? Didn't Phil tell you? I'll be staying here for the next 3 months to assess how well you do as a wife." "What? Phil, what is this about?" I looked at Phil, but he casually replied, did I forgot to mention it?" And so, living with my mother-in-law began, starting a painful chapter in my life. Every morning, Only I would be woken up early to do housework under her watchful eye. Fish for dinner? Are you treating me like an old lady? Even when I prepared dinner, she would criticize it daily. Sometimes, she would even throw away the food I'd put so much effort into making. After working late, I'd return home to find my mother-in-law blocking the entrance. What are you trying to prove by coming home this late? Don't forget my son is the one making the money. Because of this, I had to listen to her constant nagging. While she treated me like a servant, she often asked me for money. Katie, I want to see a musical show. Could you give me the ticket money? That's quite a sudden request. Come on, I'm in the big city, so you should let me have a little fun. Why are you being so stingy? At times like this, Phil would chime in, come on, it's not a big deal. Just give her some money. At my wit's end, I argued back, there's no way I can give you that kind of money. This is too much. It seemed this was the first time she'd been opposed, and though she tried to say something back, I ignored her and locked myself in my room. In the end, Phil reluctantly gave her the money. She took it and left without hesitation. As time passed, the amount of money she asked for kept increasing. Naturally, we're covering all the household expenses. She'd ask for money when it suited her, was always sarcastic, and made a mess of the house. Unable to tolerate the situation any longer, I brought it up with Phil one day. Phil, the way your mom treats me is just too much. You need to take action as my husband. But Phil, visibly angry, said, what are you talking about? Are you planning to criticize my mom? No, that's not what You think you're superior to me and mom just because you earn more, don't you? I can see right through you. What are you even saying? I don't understand. While I was confused, Phil calmly said, Mom isn't wrong about anything. You're a bad wife, so she's training you. If you continue to criticize her, I'll take measures. What do you mean by measures? At that moment, Phil took out a divorce form, already filled out, and slammed it on the table. Phil, what's this? If you don't comply, I'll divorce you. A woman as unappealing as you will be left alone once you're not with me. And who's the one nobody wants around? You're ridiculous. When I counted, Phil was lost for words and left the room with a snort. I no longer felt any love for Phil. I couldn't forgive his behavior. But simple revenge wouldn't mean much. So I decided to wait for the right opportunity. After the promised 3 months, his mother finally left. Still, my relationship with Phil remained strained. He continued to refuse to help with the housework and only spoke to me harshly. I gradually grew to dislike speaking to Phil altogether. Time passed, and as the Christmas approached, Phil decided on his own, we're going to my parents' place for Christmas this year. Since we were married, I had no choice but to comply, so I reluctantly agreed. On the day of the trip, we took the train. While visiting the in-laws who live far away, my mother-in-law came to pick us up at the station in her car. Phil got into the passenger seat first, and as I tried to open the backseat door, I realized it was locked. Mother, the door seems to be locked. As I said that to them through the car window, my mother-in-law and Phil looked at each other and started laughing. Why should I let an incompetent woman who can't even do proper wife duties into the car? What do you mean? I never liked you from the start. You wear your career woman attitude on your face and don't support Phil at all. Hey, open the door, I demanded, but the door remained firmly locked. Then, Phil in the passenger seat said mockingly, this should make you rethink things a little. Walk 3 hours back home. At that moment, I couldn't take it anymore. What kind of parent-child pair is this? I won't follow you anymore. I don't care what happens. Fine, I replied, squeezing out my words. My mother-in-law and Phil laughed loudly, rolled up the windows, and drove off. I just silently watched their car drive away. Well then, let's head back, I murmured to myself. And I returned to the station instead of going back to her place. I'd never go back there again. No matter how angry my mother-in-law and Phil would get, I didn't care anymore. I managed to find an open seat on the train and quickly left the area. An hour had passed since I had separated from my husband. Then, my phone started ringing. The caller was Phil. I ignored it and put my phone in my coat pocket. The calls kept coming, almost like a relentless pursuit. Unable to bear it any longer, I stepped out onto the train deck and answered the call. Hello, I said. You finally picked up. Where are you? Phil asked in a panicked voice. Keeping my composure, I asked, what's with all the calls? What's going on? So, after that, we decided to go for a drive and head back home, and I took Mom to a tourist spot. On the way, we had an accident, he replied. An accident? What do you mean? We both got minor injuries. But the other party is a foreigner, really angry, and we can't communicate. You're good at Spanish, so could you come to mediate? Phil asked frantically. I see. Are you really listening? The other car looks very expensive, and the driver is yelling in Spanish. Hurry up and come here. Where are you walking right now? Phil said. I'm not walking, I replied. What? Actually, I'm on the train right now. We're about to enter a tunnel, so the signal might cut off. What the hell? Are you kidding me? Are you heading back home? Phil shouted, but I hung up immediately. Even though the tunnel was a lie, I smiled coolly. After returning home and packing my belongings, I quickly moved into a short-stay rental apartment. Once that was done, I headed to a certain place. After the Christmas holiday ended and the first working day of the year arrived, I left the office to find my mother-in-law with crutches and Phil with a neck brace, waiting for me. What are you two doing? I asked with a scowl, and both turned red in the face. There's no one at home, and you're not answering your phone. What on earth have you been doing? Unforgivable. They yelled, so to avoid causing a scene, I led them to a nearby cafe. Why did you not come last time? And you call yourself a wife? My mother-in-law began to shout, but I ordered coffee and chose to ignore her. Phil couldn't hide his anger and said, because you didn't come back. We had all sorts of trouble afterward. The police came, and in the end, we had to speak directly to the other party. They're foreigners, and not being able to communicate was a problem. Really? I replied. I'll overlook your attitude. So just go and talk to them quickly. They're calling again. With a pushy attitude, Phil handed me the phone. Reluctantly, I answered the call, had a brief conversation with the other party, and ended the call. Phil asked me, so, what did they say? I calmly responded, they were really angry. Apparently, your mother ignored a red light and crashed into the other car. And the other party is a famous international celebrity, demanding compensation for medical expenses and the totaled car. That car is worth $300,000. What? Phil and his mother exclaimed in shock, their voices echoing in the room. They seemed speechless, unable to hide their surprise at the information. Well, can't you handle it with insurance? I lightly suggested, but my mother-in-law's face darkened immediately. Actually, we don't have insurance. I thought it was a waste of money, she muttered. Oh my, I said with a bitter smile, sensing the atmosphere change. Phil showed his anger toward me and said, what's with that attitude? That's not how a wife should act. Quickly talk to them and make sure there are no additional costs. If it goes to court, you'll be our interpreter. Then, my mother-in-law chimed in, yes, you're rich, so you should help out with this. It's only natural as a wife. I calmly responded, I'm not a wife anymore. What? Phil looked surprised, but I proceeded to explain the facts matter-of-factly. When Phil presented the divorce form to pressure me, my heart had already gone cold. I swiftly went to the courthouse and filed the divorce papers. I had kept the form Phil had used for leverage in case anything happened. What, you? How could you do this on your own? Phil exclaimed in shock. How disrespectful. His mother accused. Both of them criticized me simultaneously, but I stood my ground and confidently rebutted, I have nothing to do with you anymore. We're just strangers now. You can suffer paying the $300,000 or whatever. You horrible people. I walked away, leaving them fuming with anger. As for what happened afterward, I heard that both eventually made a full recovery from their injuries. Apparently, they weren't that seriously injured in the first place. My former mother-in-law's car was broken beyond repair due to the accident, and the famous foreign celebrity demanded an unimaginable amount in compensation. Phil's bar was never particularly successful, and his income alone was insufficient to support their household. With Phil's low income and his mother living unemployed in an apartment, they had no way to come up with the necessary funds and eventually had to go into debt. Phil moved back to his parents' home, and the two now lived together in a shabby apartment, working hard to repay their debt. Even after hearing these stories, I don't feel any sympathy for them. On the contrary, I even feel a sense of relief. Several years have passed since the divorce, and I've been living alone, focusing on my work. As a result, my stress has decreased and my performance at work has improved, leading to a promotion. Recently, a sincere and reliable man I met through work formally asked to date me with marriage in mind. I intend to accept his proposal. From now on, I'll put myself first and pursue true happiness. That's it. You've been using the $500 I sent for living expenses for fun, haven't you? Jason shouted loudly as he returned home. Could he be lying even more, not satisfied with just exploiting me? As I heard his voice, anger also welled up in my heart. Jason was a problem. He surely had no intention of listening to me. My love for Jason, who ignored my words and said things as he pleased, cooled rapidly. Do you have any intention of listening to me? I don't want to hear your excuses. Either return the money you spent immediately, or divorce. What? Then it's divorce. I answered with a smile. Right after that, the front door opened. It seemed my son Kevin had come home. It's wrong to blame Mom. What? Are you defending this woman? She has. That's exactly why you both lost my trust. Seeing the person who appeared behind Kevin, we were surprised. Thanks to his support, I was able to divorce Jason. And by stopping the remittances, they will be put in a difficult situation. I, Tracy Manning, 37 years old, am a normal part-time office worker and a mother with a son, Kevin, who is in the midst of his rebellious phase. Kevin, ever since he was young, liked his studies and would voluntarily do his homework and prepare for lessons without my prompting. As he entered his rebellious phase, he gradually began to ignore me. However, he never used harsh words or violence. When he became a high school student, I felt this was normal. More difficult than my son were my husband Jason and my mother-in-law Diane. I met Jason in college, and we started dating due to his proactive approach. After graduating, Kevin was born and we got married. How rude to have a shotgun wedding, my mother-in-law criticized. She loved Jason very much and probably thought I took him away. I endured her mistreatment. Sometimes it even endangered my pregnancy. At such times, my father-in-law Michael would save us, saying, "What are you doing?" My father-in-law is strict but kind-hearted, a benefactor who has supported us many times. I keep in touch with my father-in-law, but I keep my distance from my mother-in-law. Honestly, I don't want to get involved with her. Then one day, I got an unpleasant call from my mother-in-law. Hey, could you increase the remittance a bit? Actually, we were financially supporting her. Once, Jason suggested we live together. However, citing unresolved issues from the past mistreatment and Kevin's examination period, I refused. Then, Jason and his mother strongly criticized me. Not wanting to live together is inappropriate for a wife. My mother-in-law said, always dwelling on the past. Jason also said, wait, does living together mean I have to change my desired school? Kevin changed the situation with those words. Kevin, as the heir, was pampered by my mother-in-law. If I don't go to that school, my future will be jeopardized. Do you intend to hinder my dreams? If so, I'll never forgive you. Because of Kevin's words, my mother-in-law had nothing to say. Jason also silently looked at his mother. It was also helpful that my father-in-law was on our side. If you don't value your family, you might lose your job, he warned Jason. My father-in-law runs a company where I work part-time. Jason is the nominal successor, but his lack of work skills is well known. Even I, a part-timer, hear about Jason's incompetence. It's that famous. I think his current position is due to my father-in-law's mercy. Understanding this, Jason stopped mentioning living together. Given this background, we decided to provide financial support instead of living together. I don't feel the need to provide support, but please let me at least do this for my parents, begged Jason, so I accepted it. Jason is lazy, so in reality, I am the one sending the $500 he gave me directly to my mother-in-law. I think there's no need for financial support with your husband's income, but it's for my husband. Just send it quickly without complaints. My mother-in-law insisted over the phone. Arguing would only make my mother-in-law angrier. Until now, Kevin and my father-in-law have been supportive. But now Kevin is in adolescence, and my father-in-law is busy with an important project. It's hard to ask for help. Despite this, my mother-in-law's persistent demands for more money continued, so I decided to add another $300 from my part-time income. Just $300? Well, okay. I've increased the amount, so please don't make unnecessary contact anymore. I firmly warned my cheerful mother-in-law. Keeping distance from my mother-in-law was best, but I couldn't forget my father-in-law's kindness. I plan to endure until Kevin becomes independent. I'm back. Welcome back. After that, I planned to talk to Jason, who had just returned home, about the increased financial support. But Jason avoided even looking at me. Irritated by him, I still tried to have an important conversation. I want to talk a little. Enough, I'm tired. I'm going to take a bath, he said and headed straight to the bath. Picking up the socks and tie Jason left strewn about, I sighed. What's wrong? A voice came from behind, and I turned around in surprise to see Kevin, also looking surprised. That startled me. Kevin. It's been a while since he spoke to me, so I was surprised. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to startle you. It's okay. Did something happen? We talked for the first time in a long time. I was so happy I ended up telling him everything. Being ignored by your own husband is indeed painful. Meanwhile, Kevin listened to my story, seemingly deep in thought. Maybe grandma. Hey, I'm done with the bath. Time for dinner. While Kevin was about to say something, Jason returned to the living room. So, Kevin stopped speaking and went back to his room. Feeling like I missed a precious moment with my child, I served dinner to Jason. Hey, I have something I want to talk about. Even while eating. What? Fish? Not meat. The moment I tried to start a conversation, Jason complained about the meal. You said you wanted fish today, but more importantly, that was this morning, right? Now I feel like eating meat. A wife should sense these things. I don't have ESP. You know, I go shopping after work, right? You should tell me before then. Shut up. You're a failure as a wife. Why did I have to be criticized like this? When I argued back, Jason became more dissatisfied, leading to a marital argument, and I couldn't bring up the topic of financial support. At that time, I didn't realize that Kevin was recording us with his smartphone. Sigh, father-in-law is really a good person. I muttered to myself alone in the living room. To be honest, I had to express it out loud to cope with the stress. My mother-in-law sighed. A younger Jason used to consider my health and help with housework. That's why I decided to marry him. But after Kevin was born, everything changed. While I struggled with Kevin's upbringing, he didn't support me at all, continuously criticizing. Mom would do it this way, mom would be perfect. Thoughts of divorce came and went in my mind. I pondered over the future alone after such events. Around the time Kevin started his summer vacation. During that period, Jason completely ignored me. It was the same behavior as Kevin during his rebellious phase. Is he really a mature adult? There's something important. Come to our parents' house. One day, our family was called to my in-laws' house. It was sudden, and I had work, and Kevin had other plans, so I sent Jason alone. Jason looked a bit displeased, but took a leave and went by himself. Kevin was also getting ready to leave. Kevin, where are you going? Friends. Yeah, that's right. Okay, take care. Don't be too late. So, Kevin and I left the house separately. While at work, I heard that Jason's absence increased work efficiency, and I unconsciously smiled. When I returned home, no one had come back yet, and I started preparing dinner, wondering if I would be criticized that day. Suddenly, hey, Tracy, Jason yelled as he entered through the front door. What happened, Jason? You seem so upset. You've been deceiving me. With doubtful eyes, Jason shouted at me. What? Not understanding his words, I tilted my head and Jason glared at me with anger. Confused, I understood the situation from Jason's next words. We're getting a divorce. You've been playing with the $500 I gave you for living expenses. As soon as he came home, Jason began his angry tirade. Listening to Jason, anger also welled up in my heart. Jason was out of line. Seeing his behavior, he clearly had no intention of listening to me. Jason's attitude of unilaterally throwing words without listening to me rapidly cooled my affection for him. Don't you intend to listen to me? I don't want to hear your excuses. Either return the money you spent immediately or divorce. What? Then divorce it is. I spoke with a gentle smile, and then the front door opened. It seemed Kevin had come home. It's wrong to blame Mom. What? You're defending this woman? She has to. That's exactly why you have lost our trust. We were surprised by the person who appeared behind Kevin. Father, Dad, why are you here with Kevin? There stood my father-in-law, filled with indignation. What are you doing? Explain quickly. When my father-in-law asked in a stern tone, Jason immediately stumbled over his words. My father-in-law gazed at him sternly while Kevin took out his smartphone. I recorded all of Dad's behavior towards Mom, including our recent conversation. This will show everyone that Dad is wrong. What? When Kevin said that, Jason looked utterly shocked. I won't allow you to make Mom the villain, and if you try to hurt her, I'm prepared to take you down, Dad. Kevin is athletic and well-built, while Jason has recently started to develop a belly, a typical middle-aged man. The difference in strength was clear. You're defying your father? What kind of father are you talking about? A father who follows grandmother's every word and ignores Mom's opinions? Even when I ignored her, Mom was always sincere towards me. But what are you doing as a father? Is making Mom suffer your job as a father? Jason remained silent at Kevin's calm words. Children grow up before you know it. Despite this situation, I was sincerely happy that Kevin was protecting me. Jason, remember what I said earlier about what happens to a man who doesn't value his family? My father-in-law said this, and Jason's face turned pale. A natural reaction. It's as if he's saying he's about to fire him. Mom, here. This is a divorce form? What I was handed was a divorce form. Why did Kevin have this? I never expected such preparations. You don't have to worry about me. Encouraged by Kevin's words, I quickly filled in my part and handed it to Jason. Without hesitation, Jason signed the divorce form and then looked at me, surprised. What? Are you sure? Won't you be in trouble if we get divorced? I'll manage. It's easier than living with you. And no more troubles with your mother. But you have no choice but to sign the divorce form. Sign it now. Jason hesitated slightly, but under my father-in-law's stern gaze, he signed the divorce documents, looking dejected. Kevin, pack up. We're going to my parents' house. Got it. After that, we quickly packed our things and headed to my parents' house, sent off by my father-in-law. Jason, who tried to follow us, was glared at by Kevin and my father-in-law, stopping him in his tracks. We decided to stop by the city hall on the way to submit the divorce form. I'm truly glad Kevin and my father-in-law came back together. They made it possible for me to divorce Jason smoothly. What about the financial support? Of course, I'm stopping it. Stopping the financial support would definitely change their situation. Upon arriving at my parents' house, they welcomed us warmly, despite the sudden visit. After ensuring we were okay, my father-in-law went home. Hey Kevin, why were you with grandfather? Choosing a calm moment, I asked Kevin. Actually, I had a meeting planned with Grandpa today. It turned out his plan for the day was to talk with my father-in-law. Kevin had told my father-in-law about the financial support and Jason's daily behavior after hearing about it from me. They had made plans to meet to discuss future strategies. It turned out that my father-in-law didn't know the details of the financial support. Come to think of it, my father-in-law was absent when the financial support was decided. The topic of financial support came up after my father-in-law had left the room. The subsequent arrangements were made over the phone with my mother-in-law. I would tell my husband, and my husband understands, she said, but maybe that was a mistake. And when Kevin told my father-in-law about the situation, he seemed to be trembling with anger. Diane should have sufficient funds from me. What is she spending the money on? As a result, my father-in-law apparently conducted an investigation into my mother-in-law's activities. What became clear was my mother-in-law's wasteful spending habits. She had been using the financial support we sent for extensive shopping. During my mother-in-law's absence, a search of the storage revealed countless branded items and luxury jewelry. Moreover, it seemed she had been giving lavish gifts to attractive young men in the neighborhood. The men showed no interest in my mother-in-law, and I wouldn't seriously date a man much older than me either. The rejected gifts were left unopened in the storage because she couldn't deal with them, and my father-in-law disposed of them. Grandpa is divorcing Grandma. He was furious about her irresponsibility. I can imagine. My father-in-law decided to divorce my mother-in-law, and after seeing Jason's actions on Kevin's phone, he was further enraged. He returned with Kevin to encourage me to divorce Jason too, after deciding to get divorced himself. They encountered the scene of me being criticized and immediately urged for the divorce papers to be signed after hearing me declare I wanted a divorce. That's why everything was so prepared. Exactly. This is from Grandpa. Kevin handed me a brochure about a property. The property was of moderate size, located midway between the school and my workplace. It seemed a bit far from my in-laws' house. What does this mean? I asked. Grandpa wants to offer us this house as an apology for the recent situation, Kevin explained. I was wide-eyed with surprise. While I would have to drive from my parents' house, I could commute using regular routes from this new house. Grandpa said he doesn't want us to hesitate. It seems he'd be happier if we accepted the house. I see. I need to thank him later. I was impressed by such generosity, typical of a CEO. I gratefully accepted the house offered by my father-in-law. Eventually, Jason lost his job, not only because of this incident but also because he exposed his incompetence by leveraging his position as the CEO's son and caused various problems. He was pushing off the little work he was assigned, coercing young female employees into relationships, and harassing male employees. During the discussion of these issues, testimonies piled up, resulting in Jason's immediate dismissal. My mother-in-law, divorced by my father-in-law and kicked out of the house, apparently ended up at Jason's place. After the settlement of asset division and child support, Jason's savings were almost depleted, and he was hit with the misfortune of losing his job. Recently, I saw Dad working at a classmate's part-time job, being scolded. Really? Did that classmate say anything special? I asked. Yeah. He said, a man like your dad came in. I told him not to hesitate to be strict if he's not useful. Kevin replied. I see, that's how it is. Being continuously scolded by his son's classmate. What a pitiful situation. He was famous for his incompetence, and as he aged, his prospects for reemployment became even more difficult. On top of that, with my mother-in-law's unreformed spending habits, he is now struggling with debt. I heard from locals that fighting can be heard from their house daily, and recently the police were called due to the disturbance. That incident must have been a significant humiliation for him. Perhaps soon, he might have to leave that house, facing the possibility of being evicted due to mortgage delinquency. On one hand, I made progress in my career. My promotion to a full-time position meant more time and responsibility, but it also came with a corresponding increase in income. Life became a bit more comfortable compared to before, and I no longer had to worry about the monthly financial support. After hearing about Jason's situation, Kevin started showing interest in part-time work. Now, he buys what he wants with his own earnings, freeing us a bit from the strict budget we used to have. His growth and independence are a great relief to me. Unlike my mother-in-law, who had a habit of wasteful spending, we continue to live frugally, eliminating worries about the future. Our family is striving for a stable financial life. My relationship with my father-in-law remains good, and we see each other regularly. One day, my father-in-law made an unexpected proposal to Kevin. If you haven't decided on your future plans yet, how about considering taking over my business after graduation? I'd like you to play a key role in our company, he said. It seems my father-in-law has always considered Kevin as a successor to the company. Maybe employing Jason was part of this plan to spark Kevin's interest. There's no need to rush. If you don't find another dream by the time you graduate from college, I'd like you to consider our business as an option, my father-in-law said, and Kevin took his words seriously. Kevin, you can choose your own path. Don't worry about the favor. I'll solve it through my work, I told him. Thanks, Mom. Actually, I'm still undecided about my future, Kevin replied. He's aiming for a top university's economics department, but his future is still unclear. Then, one day, I received a call from Jason. He was struggling with the mortgage payments and ended up selling the house. I was just astonished by Jason, who left my mother-in-law behind. I understood that Jason was walking the path he chose, but I was still disappointed by his actions. You won't have any more trouble with my mom. Let's start over, Tracy. Kevin needs a real father, Jason said, to which I sharply reacted. What do you have left now? I asked, and he just looked puzzled. Through this exchange, I reconsidered my and my son's future. Our lives aren't dictated by someone else's choices. No matter what path Kevin chooses, I plan to support him fully. While my father-in-law's offer is appreciated, I want Kevin to choose his future on his own terms. I hope his university studies will bring new possibilities to his life and shape his dreams and aspirations. We will continue to move forward step by step, overcoming difficulties. Along with my son's growth, I may have also started a new journey. You have no job, no property, no home. Kevin and I have no feelings left for you. You even abandoned your mother, the only one you had left. What do you have now? Jason was silent to my question. I was honestly disappointed with him for choosing his mother over me and then ultimately abandoning her. The Jason I once loved seems to no longer exist. But if I return to you, Tracy, you no longer have a place with us. I don't want you to contact us ever again. I hung up the phone and set it to block his calls. Later, Jason went to my parents' house, but my father especially had harsh words for him, and my father-in-law took him away. He was then assigned to a construction site far away. Surrounded by burly men at work, it seems unlikely he'll interfere with us again. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law, abandoned by Jason, lost her place and was rumored to be seen under a bridge. But that is no longer my concern. I'll be late coming home today because of my part-time job. Okay, thanks for letting me know. That's my line. Thank you, really. Since then, Kevin has emerged from his rebellious phase and engages in proper conversations with me. Through recent events, I've come to understand Kevin's feelings better. To respond to those feelings, I've been expressing my gratitude and apologies directly. Thanks to his response, our parent-child relationship has become closer. Jason's departure, ironically, made us closer as a family. I spent the day with Kevin, thankful for this, and smiling. My relationship with my father-in-law remains unchanged. I may want him as a successor, but I just want to see my dear daughter and grandson, he says, caring for us. My father-in-law was delighted when we recently went on a trip with my parents. I hope to maintain this good relationship with him. Years after the divorce, letters from Jason asking for reconciliation kept coming through my parents. I've been tearing them up without reading. Another letter from him? Looks like it. He still hasn't given up. He should realize that giving up is the real path to happiness. He probably wants to regain something since he has nothing left. Let's hurry and have dinner. Today, Kevin, who has just graduated from college, is going to his first day of work as a successor in the company. He earned the employees' trust during his internship while he was a student. The office staff even mentioned how he's seen as a promising new employee. I'm proud of my son. Actually, I wanted to give this to you, Mom. What is it? He handed me a beautiful box with an elegant pen inside. I bought this with the money I've been saving. I could work hard because of you. I was moved to tears in the morning. I want to continue living peacefully and closely as a family. And I want to be there for Kevin so he can always smile. I'll be careful not to be overbearing like someone we used to know.
What? You are here, mother-in-law. Yes, actually, I moved in a week ago and am already living in this house. I'll be using the room on the second floor that was yours, so you can stay in the storage room on the first floor or in the vacant room on the third floor. What? I haven't heard anything about this. What do you mean? Well, my son, the head of the house, has agreed, so I don't need your approval. Of course, the one who pays the rent has the power to make decisions. What? I doubted my ears for a moment. Is this reality? I struggled to understand why my mother-in-law was living here. It was already stressful having her visit several times a week. I can't imagine living together. Certainly my mother-in-law lives alone and her age must be considered. It might be too late if something happens, and perhaps my husband was worried, but starting to live together without consulting me is unacceptable. Whose house does she think this is? I'm also angry with my husband. I didn't expect to be treated this way. I called my husband to confirm the facts. Hello? When I came home, your mother was here, but is it true that we are going to live together? It's true. What's wrong with that? Isn't it strange? Why didn't you consult me beforehand? I don't think there's a need to. I've explained this many times, but I'm the one paying the rent. So, you should follow my decision, right? I was so shocked I couldn't find the words. Yes, he really seems to think so. All right then, continue as you think best. It seems like you're forgetting an important point though. Do you know from whom we're renting this house? I won't let you forget only what's convenient for you. I simply took the suitcase I had brought on my business trip and returned to my parents' house. My name is Olivia, and I am 32 years old. Currently, I work as an engineer at an IT company with a stable income and a fulfilling job that allows me to enjoy my days. Thank you for your hard work. I'll be leaving ahead. Are you leaving already? We're all going out for drinks tonight. Want to join? I have plans today. Invite me another time. Is it your boyfriend? Maybe. Work is going smoothly, and thanks to the boyfriend I started dating 6 months ago, my private life is also fun and fulfilling. I have no complaints at all. Everything feels completely satisfying. Work has been really busy lately, hasn't it? I appreciate you making time for me. No problem. I can always make time for someone I love. Thank you so much. The boyfriend a friend introduced me to was truly a considerate and wonderful person who treasured me. I was always grateful for his kindness and thoughtfulness. I was very busy during my university days, studying at a science-focused college, and I didn't have the luxury of time for romance or even for myself. Even after getting a job, I was busy learning new things every day, and I had no room to have a relationship amid all the work. However, he appeared at the end of my 20s. Meeting him felt like fate. And then I thought about a future that included marriage. The days I spent with him were truly blissful, and every day was filled with new joys. I felt deeply fulfilled and happy every day. Every time I thought about our future together, I strongly felt that I wanted to continue spending happy times with him. I want to talk about our plans for the future, about marriage. Yes, I'm thinking of formally introducing you to my parents soon. Of course, I'll propose once I wrap up some work, so just hang in there a little longer, okay? Yes, I understand. I may have rushed him, but I dreamt of being happy together even after marriage. We could clearly imagine our future together, and we're enjoying every day. In 6 months, we will get married, and my parents have decided to pay for the wedding. My parents run their own business and have offered one of their investment properties as our new home. He was raised in a single-mother household and intended to send money home. My parents were supportive of this aspect as well. While preparing to start our new life, we also respected his sense of responsibility towards his family. About the rent, can we live there for free? No, they're proposing $2,000. Normally, it would be rented out for a much higher amount, so this is a special rate. Wait, they're charging us, even though their own daughter and her husband will be living there. Actually, this property was bought as an investment, so there are expenses involved. It wouldn't make much profit. It's unreasonable to expect them to cover the maintenance costs too. But they have the money, so I think they could handle it. I was surprised by my husband's comment. I had not expected him to make such demands on my parents. They do so much for us, yet he seemed to take it for granted. Considering the support and the new home my parents provided us, I was filled with gratitude, but his response puzzled me. Hearing his comment made me think that I might need to reconsider our future living arrangements. Certainly, my parents run a business and are quite comfortable financially. Yet, I am already independent and strongly feel that I should cover my own living expenses. While it might not be a huge burden for my parents to provide the house for free, I do not think it is appropriate as an adult to rely financially on them. They manage their finances strictly as business owners, and my independence is influenced by that. Well, I think it might be a bit presumptuous to not pay any rent at all, considering we'll be living in such a large house and eventually owning it. I explained to my husband, "Your father is really stingy, isn't he? He is a business owner and has an income, so he could be a little kinder. If I were in your parents' position, I would at least provide the house for free," my husband replied. "That's why I've explained it so many times, but why don't you understand?" I wanted to argue back, but I thought that paying $2,000 a month might be tough for my husband, who had expected to live in this large house for free. Still, thinking it should be free is a bit presumptuous. "Can't we lower it to about $1,500? My husband further demanded. "What? A further discount? It would normally cost twice this amount." I couldn't hide my surprise. "Still, you can negotiate a little, right? They are your parents, after all," my husband said. "What are you saying?" "I don't want to be so disrespectful to my parents. If you're really grateful, you wouldn't negotiate like this," I argued. Since we were already getting such a low rate, asking for an additional discount seemed too presumptuous. Moreover, if he truly appreciated my parents, he shouldn't be making such unreasonable demands. Through this discussion, I reconfirmed the difference in values between my husband and me. To live together in the future, we need mutual understanding and cooperation. Maybe he lacks a sense of gratitude. Also, my parents have said that we can move any time if we want to, right? If we decide to stay long-term, they mentioned they would transfer the property title to us. Despite my parents being so cooperative, I can't understand my husband's argument at all. How can he be so brazen? His self-centered behavior perfectly reflects the current situation. He thought it would be provided for free, so he feels that paying $2,000 is too much. That's true. But $2,000 is already the lowest price. I could possibly do $1,800, my father answered. Well, more discounts are needed. I firmly stated, if we show this much concession, he should understand, and with the $200 saved, he could send money home, right? His family is a single-mother household, isn't it? My father continued. Yes, I replied. There's no problem, and starting married life does cost money, so don't worry. Just consider your relationship as husband and wife. That's all my father kindly said. Thanks to my father's kindness, I was able to firmly express my opinion to my husband, and he eventually agreed to the rent of $1,800. Since then, we have been living without any major problems. Normally, my husband pays the rent, and I handle the other daily expenses. We bought a family car, and since I pay for the savings from my own money, my husband had more money available to spend. However, I don't waste money and generally lead a peaceful life. But my mother will be here in 30 minutes, so let's finish cleaning quickly. What? You're not going to clean before Mom arrives? No, it's not that. But why didn't you tell me earlier? It's difficult when you tell me so suddenly. I don't mind my mother-in-law visiting. But why didn't he tell me earlier? If I had been informed sooner, I would have cleaned the house and finished the chores earlier. I haven't prepared any tea either, and maybe he's not thinking because it's his own mother, but ultimately, I'm the one who feels uncomfortable. Why can't you think of that? I sighed, but it was too late to think about it. I need your help to clean up quickly now. What? It's a hassle, so you do it. It's my day off. Let me rest. What? Isn't your mother coming soon? Wouldn't it be better if you did it? I've been busy lately. What was he saying? I asked him to help clean because his mother was coming, but he didn't intend to lift a finger. I was already irritated by being told so suddenly, and his selfish comment just astounded me. I wanted to finish cleaning quickly. Are you saying I should do everything? That's really not fair, is it? You're the wife, so you should be able to handle that. Why do you always need instructions? Don't forget that I'm supporting you. Supporting? What does he mean? I don't think I am receiving any special support from my husband. Indeed, he pays the rent, but I cover the daily living expenses. Considering the expenses, I contribute more, and I can't understand his arrogant attitude. But arguing would be a waste of time. I should start cleaning immediately. While my husband watched TV on the sofa, I hurriedly cleaned. I was angry, but I managed to finish the cleaning before my mother-in-law arrived. Thank you for having me. It's been a while. Haven't you changed at all? Are you that worried? I don't think I look that old. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. Really, is that so? Do they think I'm someone who would make such sarcastic remarks? Well, my mother-in-law's character hasn't changed since the old days. I understand she was raised by a single mother and cherishes her son, but her affection seems a bit excessive. Even during the marriage introduction, she looked down on me and didn't seem interested in building a good relationship with me. I'm not asking to be particularly close, but I can't understand why she dislikes me so openly. I haven't done anything bad to my mother-in-law, nor have I behaved unreasonably. I wonder what she dislikes about me. My husband sometimes says unreasonable things, and being raised by such a mother, I suppose it's somewhat inevitable. Hey, I've been thinking for a while, isn't your housekeeping a bit lacking? I wouldn't call it a filthy house, but I think you could keep it cleaner. I am trying, but I have a job every day, so I can't devote much time to it, mother-in-law. I also grew up in a single-parent household, but I kept the house clean. Such excuses are unnecessary. No, I am not making excuses. Lately, I have been especially busy, and sometimes I need to complete unfinished tasks at home. If a problem occurs with the system under development, I must finish the corrections before the deadline. If the corrections are delayed, serious issues can arise. It's frustrating to be criticized without understanding my work. Furthermore, let me say that my husband was living on social welfare. My mother-in-law does not work and is nearly in the same situation as a housewife. Although she was a single mother, she had time on her hands, so it was natural for her to do housework. Comparing her situation to mine is unfair. Moreover, we both work, so I shouldn't be the only one scrutinized but also her son who does nothing. I don't seek conflict with my mother-in-law, but when she starts complaining as soon as she visits, I get angry too. Please don't say that. I'm managing all the housework alone, and it's actually quite challenging. It might sound a bit harsh, but I need to be clear, otherwise you might not understand. What? Are you trying to get your husband to do the housework? Even if I want him to help, the reality is that he doesn't. You are the wife, so it's natural for you to do the housework. I heard that your husband pays the rent, so you should at least do the housework. Who do you think is the head of this house? How could you get married without understanding such a hierarchy? That's why I was against marriage. What? I was dumbfounded by her words and lost for a response. Please, enough with the jokes. Interfering in someone else's family is unreasonable, but talking to such a person is a waste of time and mental energy. I responded with a yes while leading her to the living room. By the way, shall we have steak today? There's a steakhouse near the station. That sounds great. Let's enjoy some good food for a change. Olivia, we're waiting at home, so could you pick up steaks for everyone as takeout? Please add mashed potatoes and lobster soup for me. Again, I was being used. Moreover, it seemed like they had no intention of pulling out their wallets. They probably planned to make me pay anyway. If I asked them for money, I could already see the complaints coming. Besides, I wanted to get out for a bit and take a walk, so the timing was good. I'm not pleased about treating them to expensive steaks, but there's no point in dwelling on it. With these thoughts, I headed to the steakhouse near the station. When I got home with the steaks, I was greeted with, "You're late. Consider that we've been waiting." Sigh. Not a single word of thanks, just complaints. It's like they're machines that produce complaints. Complaining seems as natural as breathing to them. Finding faults in others is almost admirable in a way. I thought about responding sarcastically, but I controlled my emotions and sat down. We spent the rest of the afternoon idly, and they went out to eat together in the evening. I wasn't invited, and I didn't go. They are truly rude people. When they returned home, they started drinking in the living room, and eventually, my mother-in-law stayed over. We slept in separate rooms, so it wasn't a big problem, but it felt somewhat lacking in common sense. She left the next day, but my weekend was ruined and I felt significant stress. After that, my mother-in-law started visiting almost every week. It's unclear whether she comes to say harsh things to me or to see her beloved son. As a result, I just kept accumulating stress. I have to go on a business trip for a week starting next week, so please take care of things at home. A business trip? Why all of a sudden? There's a presentation for the system we're developing. I'm involved as a key developer. I see. While the business trip was real, I was excited to finally have some time alone for the first time in a while. Every week, meetings with my mother-in-law involve listening to her complaints about housework and how a wife should behave. No matter how busy my husband is, he shirks his home responsibilities, never touches housework, and neglects his role, claiming he's the breadwinner. Fed up with this situation, I was looking at the business trip as a chance to refresh. The presentation of the new system was nerve-wracking and more tiring than my regular duties. But a week without anyone complaining and being able to do what I wanted was incredibly soothing. When I returned home from the business trip, I was shocked. "What? Were you here, mother-in-law?" "Yes, actually, I moved in a week ago and am already living in this house. I'll be using the room on the second floor that was yours. So you can stay in the storage room on the first floor or in the vacant room on the third floor." "What? I haven't heard anything about this. What do you mean?" "Well, my son, the head of the house, has agreed, so I don't need your approval. Of course, the one who pays the rent has the power to make decisions." "What?" I doubted my ears for a moment. Is this reality? I struggled to understand why my mother-in-law was living here. It was already stressful having her visit several times a week. I can't imagine living together. Certainly, my mother-in-law lives alone and her age must be considered. It might be too late if something happens, and perhaps my husband is worried, but starting to live together without consulting me is unacceptable. Whose house does she think this is? I'm also angry with my husband. I didn't expect to be treated this way. I called my husband to confirm the facts. Hello? When I came home, your mother is here, but is it true that we are going to live together? It's true. What's wrong with that? Isn't it strange? Why didn't you consult me beforehand? I don't think there's a need to. I've explained this many times, but I'm the one paying the rent. So, you should follow my decision, right? I was so shocked. I couldn't find the words. Yet, he really seems to think so. All right then, continue as you think best. It seems like you're forgetting an important point, though. Do you know from whom we're renting this house? I won't let you forget only what's convenient for you. I took my suitcase that I had brought on the business trip and returned to my parents' house. So he just let his mother live in the house without asking. Don't you think that's strange? I see. So, you've been harassed by your mother-in-law all this time. I didn't want to worry you, Dad, and everyone says it's normal, so I kept quiet, but I can't take it anymore. I see. I understand. I'll take care of it. My father said that and made a phone call. From that day, I started living at my parents' house and haven't been in contact with my husband for a week. Then came Saturday. Together with my father, we went to the house where my husband and mother-in-law were living. When we pressed the intercom, my husband, looking like he had just woken up, opened the door and frowned when he saw us. What? Here's a divorce paper. Can you sign it? What? Wait, what does this mean? I know everything you and your mother have been doing. Please stop deceiving us now. My father stared at my husband sternly, and my husband was clearly frightened. He shrank completely and wouldn't even meet our eyes. However, I continued to speak. Don't think that you can torment me and get away with it for free. No, there's no need to go that far, isn't there? Who do you think you are? Acting all scared when divorce is mentioned, after you've ignored everything you've done. What do you think I am? Even I, who am usually calm, exploded with anger due to everything that had built up. My husband must have never expected me to get this angry. But that was proof of how much anger had accumulated. I will certainly listen to my daughter, and from now on you will pay the full rent for this house. There will be no more discounts to a stranger, so be prepared. What? Starting next month, the rent will no longer be $1,800 but $18,000. Do you understand? I've prepared the lease agreement, so after you sign the divorce papers, please sign this too. As we declared this, my husband looked overwhelmed and was unable to say anything. He must have been stunned by the amount of $18,000, but we were serious. You can't just demand such an amount suddenly, it's impossible. Why do you think it's impossible? Well, because there's no formal lease agreement for this house. Once you get divorced, we are strangers. You cannot continue to live here. If you can't pay the rent, please leave immediately. Since there was no formal contract, we were able to firmly hold our position. My husband must not have anticipated this situation, but it's too late for regrets now. He should take responsibility for his actions. We were determined to proceed resolutely, regardless of how much he resisted. However, sensing the disturbance, my mother-in-law appeared from behind. What's going on here? What on earth is all this? It's been a while. To be clear, this house belongs to me. So, I need you to leave. I want a divorce for my daughter, and I have no intention of letting strangers live here." "What did you say?" "Telling us to leave. How can you say something so unreasonable?" "Who is being unreasonable here? If you want to justify your actions, please feel free to settle it in court." In court. Both my mother-in-law and my husband were shocked by the mention of court, but this was something I had already discussed with my father. We had planned to go to court if they caused problems that became unmanageable. This was my suggestion because reasoning with unreasonable people is pointless. However, due to their lack of common sense, the mention of a lawyer visibly frightened them. Where did all their previous confidence go? They looked at each other, clearly shaken. "You have a job, so moving closer to your workplace is also an option, isn't it? It's just that simple." "But I'm telling you, I don't have the money." "You don't have the money? That must be a joke. Considering your income, you should be able to save some. Were you spending $1,000 a month on leisure?" But I never felt the need to save. I was astonished. He was working normally, and the only expense he was paying was the rent. I was covering the car loan and other living expenses, so I assumed he was saving more. That's why I can't get divorced, and I can't move out. Yes, once you're married, you can't just get divorced easily. It will leave a mark on your family registry. How long will you cling to that outdated thinking? You talk about a mark on the family registry, but I would rather divorce without hesitation than live with unreasonable and self-centered people like you. You have no awareness of what you've done. This is absolutely absurd. Please stop making me angrier. You don't seem to understand how much you've done to me. That's why you can say without shame that you don't want a divorce and that you need help because you have no money. To me, that is irrelevant. And now I realize that perhaps my husband married me because he was aiming for my parents' business and their properties. Maybe he was more interested in my parents' wealth, living cheaply in this grand house, and the substantial inheritance I would eventually receive than in me personally. Please keep your disdain to yourself. Do not forget that if it goes to court, we will be at an advantage. I am giving you 1 week to leave this house. Wait a minute. Please forgive me. I'll even kneel if it's necessary. Just give me one more chance. I am confident that we can make it right. There might have been some misunderstandings, but we are a married couple who vowed to overcome any difficulties together. That's why I'm considering a divorce, because it's impossible. A marriage can't be sustained just on superficial words. Furthermore, since I've been betrayed, I can no longer trust you. Your actions have ensured that I will never trust you again. As I said before, I have a reliable lawyer on my side. Of course, you can hire a lawyer to negotiate, but considering your situation where you can't even afford moving expenses, it would be wise to avoid unnecessary costs. My father's advice is absolutely right. You don't even have the funds to move, let alone afford a lawyer. And even if you were to hire a lawyer, it would be easy for me to divorce you and evict you from the house. Therefore, there is no point in continuing this conversation. With that, I left with my father and returned to our family home. I had already blocked his phone number, so there were no calls from my husband, but messages continued to come through email and other chat apps. I was truly disheartened by their persistent actions, feeling that they did not understand what I was saying. Now I have been consistently ignoring them. My disappointment in their actions deepened, and I felt irritated that they completely failed to understand my views and emotions. However, to avoid their approach, I made an effort to stay calm and not respond to them. Our demands were clearly communicated, and if they did not comply, we had no choice but to proceed with legal actions. Our position was firm, and we were ready to resort to legal proceedings if our demands were not met. I had strong support, so there was nothing to worry about. With backing from family, friends, and professionals, I was confident that I could overcome any difficulties. By the way, what happened after that? The deadline is tomorrow, so if the divorce and move aren't complete by then, I've told them we'll call the lawyer. And this evening I received a message that they had submitted the divorce papers and were ready to pack up and leave the house. They said they would bring the keys here. That's good. Then I'll handle it. You don't need to meet them face to face, my father assured me. Thank you, Dad, I expressed my gratitude. Thanks to my father handling the key exchange, I was able to avoid meeting them face to face. From what I heard through mutual acquaintances, they are living a difficult life. My mother-in-law, lacking a job and means to make a living, searched for a new place to live with my husband. Initially, they stayed in a cheap hotel. Later, they moved into an apartment without a bath, paying a very low deposit, and began their new life together. However, compared to their previous residence, the quality of the new place is extremely low, so their daily life is filled with stress, and they constantly argue. Well, he has a job, so it might not be such a big problem. It might even seem like a luxurious worry. Apparently, the stress has led to severe spending, and they frequently ask acquaintances for money. Really? Is that true? As a result, they are increasingly distanced by friends, which must be causing them great anxiety about their future life. Financially struggling and also needing to care for his mother, it's unlikely that anyone would consider marrying him. Given his age and his inability to manage money, it will probably be better for everyone around him if he remains unmarried. While I find the situation extremely difficult and sad, I also see it as a perfect opportunity for them to recognize their mistakes and improve their behavior. Since then, I found a place to live on my own and am now enjoying a fulfilling life there. Work is going very well, as I am in charge of major projects, and I feel fulfilled in my job. My relationship with my parents is also very good. I haven't decided whether I would get married again, but for now I am focusing on enjoying my current life. No matter how much money one has, ultimately, relationships with people are the most important. I believe that if you can build healthy, good relationships, you can lead a happy life, even if there are times of financial difficulty. Moving forward, I hope to enrich my life without being confined by money, cherishing the valuable relationships with friends and family.